When my grandmother, Kitty Nichols, on this photograph died in 1994, it was a big void in my life because I love my nana. And so one of the things I wanted to do was discover why my great-grandmother, Amelia Rose, was an orphan. And so what happened was then I sent a letter off to Dr. Bernardo's, and this is what arrived in the post. First of all, there was this picture of John Tuggey. I had no idea who John Tuggey really was. When I asked my mother, she said that he was known to be a drunken bum in Canada. So that gave me the decision to find out what had happened. And on this paper it says that John Tuggey was aged 8, from Portsea, England, and Miss Lyons lived at Clone Road, Portsmouth, and that was his next of kin. And he was sent to Alex Mackay, the Galbraith Road, County Lanark, in Middleville, just outside Carlton Place. Well, this is what I read. I couldn't believe what I was reading. Mr. Mackay writes, "We are well pleased with him. Asks if he has any disease." John Mackay writes in 1891 on the 13th of July, "John is not turning out a good boy. We will have to send him back if he does not do better." Later on in September of 1891, a very manly fellow goes off with his dog after the cattle and never loses his way or thinks of being afraid. And there are 2 little children in the family of whom Johnny is well fond. He is the only boy. Sunday school is too far for him to attend, was just starting school and was to go regularly. Then in August 1st, 1895, it reads, "John is so untruthful and radicated to the use of bad language that Mr. Mackay says that if he does not improve, he'll have to return him. And he's strong and can work well." Then for me, I was really happy when it said that in the 24th of June, 1899, John writes, "I've given my heart to Jesus, attended the Presbyterian Church." Later on, the last remarks that he made was, "I have just come from the lumber woods, have been cutting wood. I don't like it well, so we'll go to the lumber woods again in a month or so, and take a trip to England next summer. I would like to find some of my friends. Could you give me the name of some English newspapers?" Wow, well, this was unbelievable. And I discovered that John was one of the 100,000 children sent to Canada as child migrants to work the land. Many of them were mistreated. Many of them were used as they were treated as misfits and outcasts and less than another Canadian. And John went on SS Sarnia to go to Canada. He went via Liverpool. And other ones were the RMS Matagma and the Canadian Pacific SS Montclair. Then I discovered that these were my great-grandparents, George John Tuggey and Mary Ann Maria. Mary Ann Maria died after George. She died in 1889. And they had a wonderful, they really had a wonderful naval history, because Mary's father was Thomas Scott. He was a boatswain on HMS Pick, and he sailed all the way to Acre in Israel, where there was a big battle, which they won. But there was a huge storm which brewed up over the coast of Hafia in 1840 on the way back to England. and the storm broke the mast in two and hit poor old Thomas on the head. And Christiana, his wife, always complained that if he had died in battle, she would have got a pension, but she got nothing. Also, George Tuggey was on the Fire Queen, the HMS Fire Queen, a yacht which took Victoria to the Isle of Wight, which was amazing. This was Ellen Charlotte, one of the eldest sisters, who put Maria Kate, Amelia Rose, who was my grandmother, Thomas William, Alice Lillian and John Robert into the homes. These were the names of the children, of 14 altogether. I know that Christiana, she went to New Zealand. She got hit by a bus and died. Harriet Isabella went to, known as Pips, went to Canada, but she went to Vancouver. She was married and lived there. This is Alex McKay, who John went to stay with. And this here was Kembo's Alex's grandson, who I met when he was a lot older. And these are the grandchildren of Alex McKay, who John would have known. You imagine the shock of finding out that your great uncle was sent to Canada as one of the 100,000 children sent them, and I had no idea. I know that the McKay family originated from Scotland. They were a clan that moved there when the British were at war with the Scottish. This was Minnie Tuggey, Minnie Fumerton, and this was George Wilmot, and this is John Marvin. They were the children of John Tuggey. This was my this is my great-grandmother, Amelia Rose, John's sister. And this is John's brother, Thomas Tuggey. This is John when he was older. That's John Marvin. And this was John Tuggey before he died. And he died on the 18th of February 1959, which was 2 years before I was born. And I find it very hard to see him as an older person. I know that his wife, Minnie, who was on the picture as a beautiful young woman, she died in hospital. And he used to go and see her every day. And it was just amazing. Here is Wendy Alinsky and Joan Ferguson, who were the grandchildren who had no idea that their grandfather was a homeboy. John wouldn't want them to know because people did treat them absolutely terribly. And then I went to Canada a number of times to go and visit John, where John used to live. Not John, because he would have been dead by then. Just trying to find some of the pictures from my book, which I wrote. This was where John stayed, in Middleville. This was me and Anthony. Anthony Uden came to Canada via the assisted passage from England. This was Kembo's, who I was talking about when he was older. He died. It's a good job I met him when I did, because he died, but he gave me some useful information. This is the barn where John would have worked. This is Len McKay, who's an ancestor or a descendant of Alex McKay. And they used to make maple syrup. So you can imagine what kind of lifestyle that they would have had. This is the homestead of the Munros, because John went to work with the Munros. John also worked at Hall's Mills. And this is the old house where he would have perhaps stayed. And it's the Munros, Robert Munro, his son was still alive and I met him, but they died. They unfortunately died not long after. and this is John's grave.